What was the weather like when you woke up today?
Oh, that's a good question.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, take a second and really think about it. Was it, heavy and gray? Or was there maybe a bright, sharp chill in the air?
Yeah.
Did you look out your window and just immediately feel a certain kind of way before you even, I don't know, checked your phone or poured a cup of coffee?
I bet almost everyone did, yeah.
Exactly. And asking about the weather, it sounds like the most cliche, throwaway small talk question ever invented.
It really does.
We're practically conditioned to view it as the ultimate conversational filler, right? Like the thing we desperately throw into the silence when we have absolutely nothing of substance to say.
It's totally empty words.
Right. But what if we've been looking at this entirely backwards? What if talking about the sky is actually this secret, I don't know, skeleton key to human connection and natural language fluency?
It definitely sounds counterintuitive, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Because we're trained from day one, especially when you're like learning a new language or just trying to improve your communication skills, to believe that discussing the weather is the literal definition of superficial.
Right, it's just filler.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We assume that fluency and gut connection only come from, tackling complex ideas or sharing these profound personal truths. But the reality is actually quite different. Mastering the nuances of everyday weather talk is arguably the strongest foundation for actual natural fluency.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because our mission today is to completely reframe how you think about simple language. We're diving deep into some truly fantastic insights from the English Boost podcast. They tackled this exact topic, talking about the weather in English, but they bypassed the standard textbook vocabulary list entirely.
It's just so refreshing.
So refreshing. We're going to explore how mastering this specific type of everyday talk can transform you from someone who is, merely studying a language into an active participant in daily human interaction.
Yeah, because there's this fascinating paradox at play here. Often, the language that appears the simplest is actually the most advanced in practice.
Wait, really? The simplest is the most advanced?
Oh, absolutely. It requires a level of cultural nuance, timing, and shared understanding that you simply cannot get from memorizing grammar charts.
Which I guess brings us to the messy reality of learning a language, or honestly, acquiring any complex skill. It is rarely a neat linear line of progress.
Definitely not.
And the deep dive we're looking at highlights this hilarious but painfully true concept. They talk about how vocabulary can be incredibly rude.
Yes. Rude vocabulary is just such a perfect way to describe the experience.
It really is. You know the feeling. One day, a word is right there in your head. You understand it perfectly when you read it, you've practiced it, it's totally locked in, and then the very next day you're standing in front of someone, you need that exact word, and it has completely disappeared.
God.
No warning, no apology, just very poor behavior from your own brain.
That is hilarious. But the mechanism behind why that happens is actually really important to understand.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so when you're in a live conversation, your cognitive load is just sky high. You are processing the other person's tone, reading their body language, formulating your response, and, managing your own social anxiety on top of it all.
Right, which is exhausting.
Completely exhausting. And under that immense pressure, the brain just drops the information that isn't fully automated yet. That poor behavior from our memory often makes learners feel like they're failing.
Oh, I've been there.
But that disappearance isn't proof of failure. It's actually proof of the messy process of automation. Learning is inherently awkward before it becomes comfortable. Progress in language is often deeply quiet.
Quiet progress. I like that. What does that actually look like in practice, mechanically speaking?
Well, it looks like receptive milestones that you almost miss.
Okay.
It's that tiny moment when you're watching a movie and you suddenly realize, oh, wait, I understood that colloquial joke without translating it in my head.
Yes, that's the best feeling.
Or you overhear a conversation in a coffee shop and realize you could just naturally jump in. Society tells us that progress is about delivering a flawless, complex monologue. But neurologically, progress usually starts with quiet reception.
I have to push back on this a little bit, though.
Okay, go for it.
Because if I'm putting hundreds of hours into mastering English, isn't the ultimate goal to eventually use those big, impressive sentences to sound sophisticated?
I mean, that's what a lot of people think.
Right. Like, let's say I'm walking into a boardroom for a high-stakes presentation, or I'm in a critical job interview. I don't want to use casual, everyday language. I want to wear the linguistic tuxedo, you know? I want to demonstrate high-level competence.
That is a very common trap, and honestly, it's a great analogy. But what's fascinating here is that Normal is underrated in language learning.
Underrated.
Completely.
Right.
Think about that linguistic tuxedo. A tuxedo is undeniably impressive. It signals formality and sophistication. But if you wear a tuxedo to the grocery store or to grab a casual coffee, you don't look sophisticated.
You look ridiculous.
Exactly. You just look socially uncalibrated. And more importantly, even in that high-stakes boardroom setting you mentioned, you rarely start the meeting in the tuxedo.
Wait, what do you mean? You think a CEO walks into a board meeting in a linguistic t-shirt?
Absolutely. Competence in human interaction almost always starts with establishing baseline humanity before you get to the complex data.
Oh, I see.
Imagine you're grabbing a coffee with a colleague before that big presentation. You look out the window and, utilizing your perfect high-level vocabulary, you say, the atmospheric conditions are unstable.
Oh my gosh. I would immediately assume you're a robot. Or at the very least, I would just slowly back away from you.
Right. The sentence is grammatically flawless and uses advanced vocabulary. But pragmatically, it's totally bizarre. Contrast that with looking out the window and just saying, looks like rain.
Yeah, that's way more normal.
Looks like rain is vastly superior because it's alive. It's the comfortable, well-fitting t-shirt. The reason it works so well is that it lowers the cognitive load for both people. Simple sentences don't require you to perform.
So, because looks like rain doesn't require the listener to, decode a complex thought, it removes the pressure.
Precisely. You aren't putting on a show of your intellectual capacity. You're simply opening a door to a genuine interaction.
And if opening that door without pressure is the goal, then we arrive at why the weather is the ultimate fail-proof social tool. If we need something normal and universally shared to establish that baseline humanity, there is quite literally nothing more normal and shared than the sky above us. It's the great equalizer.
It truly is. To talk about the weather, you don't need someone's life story. You don't need to know where they grew up, what their political affiliations are, or, their deepest traumas.
Thankfully.
Yeah. You only need, and this is a brilliant observation from the English Boost podcast, you only need eyes, skin, and a basic relationship with air.
I've been thinking about that exact phrase so much, a basic relationship with air. It almost works like a social handshake protocol in computer networking.
That's an interesting way to look at it. How so?
Well, when two servers connect, they don't immediately send a massive complex file to each other. That would crash the system.
Right.
First, one server sends a tiny low bandwidth ping, just a tiny packet of data to ask, hey, are you active? Are you friendly? Are you ready to receive heavier data? Talking about the weather is the human equivalent of that low bandwidth ping.
That is a phenomenal way to describe it.
Yeah.
The mechanics of small talk rely entirely on finding a non-threatening bridge between two isolated individuals.
Yeah.
If you step into an elevator with a stranger and immediately ask a deeply personal question like, are you happy with your career choices?
Yeah.
The stakes are way too high. They will retreat.
I'd press the emergency stop button.
Exactly. But if you talk about something entirely empty, the conversation just dies. The weather sits in the perfect middle ground. It's emotionally safe, but it's not completely empty either. It gives you a manageable beginning.
It belongs to everybody simultaneously. It does not matter if you are wealthy, exhausted, running late, underdressed. A sudden downpour hits the CEO exactly the same way it hits the intern. You are all suddenly under the same sky, navigating the exact same physical obstacle.
And that shared obstacle creates a conversational runway. You send that low bandwidth ping, can you believe this heat? And it naturally, almost effortlessly, escalates.
Because curiosity naturally takes over once the pressure is off. You say, nice day today. The person next to you says, yeah, finally. Makes me want to go for a long walk.
Right.
And because they offered a tiny bit of personal data, you can ask, oh, do you usually walk in the evenings? Suddenly, you are no longer talking about the sky. You're having a real conversation.
It's the perfect stepping stone. Think about your last elevator ride or coffee shop line. Did you start by asking about a stranger's deepest emotional problems, or did you mention the heat?
Definitely the heat.
Exactly. But we need to take this a layer deeper. The weather isn't just an external reality that we passively observe from a distance. It actually dictates our internal world.
Yeah, that's so nice.
It alters our baseline operating state physically and emotionally before we even speak a word to anyone.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because waking up to a bright, clear morning doesn't necessarily create a miracle in your life, right? It doesn't pay your bills.
Sadly, no.
But it makes the mind feel noticeably less heavy. It's just a slightly easier start to the day. And then conversely, we've all experienced those gray, oppressive days.
Oh, absolutely.
For some people, that grayness is deeply peaceful. But for many, it feels like, as the source said, your motivation simply forgot to arrive.
Motivation forgot to arrive. I love that phrasing.
It's so relatable. It shows how the weather is essentially like the background music to our daily movie. You wouldn't play upbeat pop music over a thoughtful, quiet scene.
That's a perfect analogy.
And because it sets that tone, it reveals an incredible amount about who we are. The breakdown of weather personalities from the English Boost podcast was absolutely fascinating to me.
Yeah, the idea that the weather we prefer acts as a psychological profile.
Exactly. So first you have the summer people. These are the individuals who wake up to blinding, intense sunshine, and their immediate visceral reaction is, let's go outside, move, glow, live.
Right, they draw energy from the sun.
Then you have the autumn people. An autumn person looks out the window at a crisp, cool, slightly overcast day and essentially says, please pass me a coat and a meaningful thought.
A meaningful thought that is so specific and so accurate. They thrive in an environment that encourages depth, but without the heavy isolation of deep winter.
Which brings us to the winter people. And the best description for this group is that they possess very serious T energy.
Serious T energy. You know exactly what that means socially, too. It's the heavy blanket, the warm mug, the deep satisfaction of establishing boundaries and staying indoors.
They also talked about this concept of a morning feeling emotionally organized. Like stepping out into a brisk morning where the day hasn't made a mess of itself yet. It feels clean.
This is why mastering weather talk is so powerful. When someone tells you they love a rainy day or a brisk morning, they aren't giving you meteorological data. They are actually revealing the emotional atmosphere they enjoy living in. It's soft talk, but deeply human.
But of course, it's not all poetic T energy. A lot of the time, the environment is just incredibly hostile or wildly inconvenient.
Right, and that shared frustration requires specific words to express effectively.
Which is where the microdramas of daily life come into play.
Oh, the microdramas.
It's a comedy of unpredictable weather. We've all had those days where you leave the house and you are forced to carry an umbrella, sunglasses, a heavy jacket, and just pure, unadulterated disappointment.
Yes, carrying around disappointment all day.
You spend the entire day lugging around accessories you no longer believe in because the app lied to you.
It's the very specific pain of false weather confidence. When you check your app, you walk outside feeling entirely certain of your outfit choices, only to return to your house 10 minutes later, looking like life has aggressively corrected you.
And we cannot talk about microdramas without talking about the rude side of wind. Wind looks completely harmless from inside your living room, but you step outside and suddenly the wind is making unilateral decisions about your hair, your clothes, and your dignity.
Dignity is always the first casualty in high winds.
It ruins it first and fastest, especially if you make the mistake of opening an umbrella. There is no image more tragically relatable than an umbrella caught in a sudden gust of wind, turning inside out into a broken flower of disappointment.
A broken flower of disappointment. That's just a hilarious image.
I love that phrase so much.
It's great. But here is where the mechanics of language learning come back into focus. Because real weather talk is half description, half feeling. To effectively complain about these microdramas, to really build empathy with a coworker over that broken flower of disappointment, you need the right pragmatic tools. Learning these specific phrases allows your English to sound more like a human and less like a weather app.
Let's analyze a few of those practical tools from the deep dive. Take the word muggy. Now we all know it means warm and humid. But pragmatically, how does someone use it in conversation?
Linguistically, muggy is a powerful tool for shared exhaustion. It describes a sticky heat where stepping outside for 5 minutes feels like you've lived a full day. When you say, it's so muggy out there, you are shifting the blame from human laziness to atmospheric oppression.
That's brilliant. It commands immediate empathy.
It really does.
Contrast that with brisk. Brisk isn't just cold, it's a psychological reset button. It's clean, lively, and energizing. Or refreshing, which literally implies it's waking you up.
Exactly. And then there are idioms that use weather to navigate tricky social situations. Under the weather is a gentle, non-dramatic way to say you feel off.
Because it's a polite boundary, right?
Right. Think about the corporate environment. You don't want to tell your boss the graphic details of a stomach bug. Saying you feel a bit under the weather softens the reality of illness while still excusing your lower energy levels.
What about the phrase, come rain or shine?
That's a pure declaration of commitment. It tells the listener that your dedication to an event is stronger than the unpredictable forces of nature, no matter what.
And there are phrasal verbs too, like waiting for it to clear up, meaning the clouds are going away, or hoping things cool down, which is usually me standing by the open fridge hoping it solves something.
We've all been there.
But I want to talk about something that completely changed how I view everyday English, the importance of lived-in filler words.
Oh, this is crucial.
When you describe the weather, you don't just state the fact. You say, it's a bit gloomy, or it finally cooled down. It's honestly lovely out. Why do these tiny filler words matter so much?
Because they act as social softeners. When you say the weather is gloomy, it sounds like an objective robotic decree. But when you add a bit, or honestly, you are adding your subjective human reaction.
It shows you're processing the thought in real time.
Exactly. Subconsciously, that triggers empathy in the listener's brain. It makes the sentence sound inherently human.
It's the same reason exaggeration works so well. Saying, I stepped outside and immediately regretted everything is vastly superior to saying, the atmospheric conditions are highly unpleasant.
Because the goal is to sound like a person navigating a shared reality. When learners grasp this, when they start using short, heavily hedged sentences with a bit of exaggeration, speaking stops feeling like a high-wire performance.
So what does this all mean? If we take a step back and look at the whole picture, the rude disappearance of vocabulary, the social handshake protocol, the psychological profiles hidden in tea energy, and the shared trauma of wind destroying our dignity, the main takeaway is that fluency isn't fundamentally about flawless grammar. It's about connection. Weather is the ultimate shared human experience that bridges the gap between strangers, reflects our inner moods, and gives us a safe, natural way to practice language.
Absolutely.
But, there is one final, incredibly provocative thought from the English Just Boost podcast that we need to leave you with, and it has to do with memory.
Yeah, this completely shifted my perspective. Weather wraps itself incredibly tightly around our past experiences.
It really does.
Human beings are deeply sensory creatures. Very often, we remember the physical temperature or the quality of light in a room long before we remember the exact words that were spoken.
Think about a rainy afternoon. It isn't just precipitation falling from clouds, it's the bodily memory of childhood comfort, or the specific smell of a room you used to live in.
And a bright, aggressively cold morning isn't just a reading on a thermometer. It brings rushing back the memory of early school nerves or the sharp hope of new beginnings.
It is incredible to realize that a casual comment about a cool breeze is actually tapping into an entire inner soundtrack of lived experience.
We are constantly interacting with our own history through the atmosphere. So we want to leave you with a challenge based on that exact idea.
Okay, ready?
Wherever you are right now, as you're listening to this, take a moment to look out your window, look at the sky, and ask yourself this. What past memory is today's weather trying to pull out of you?
Wow, what a profound question. We started today by simply asking what the weather was like when you woke up, assuming it was just a throwaway question. But it turns out it holds the key to opening doors with strangers and maybe even accessing our oldest memories.
It really does.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Go out there, grab your umbrella, and hopefully it manages to survive the wind and doesn't become a broken flower of disappointment, and start a real conversation. Take care of your English and take care of your heart.